contract was renewed, with the intention to do an RFP for grant support services in January of 2025.
Okay.
We had a conversation in the finance committee meeting this week about the renewed expectation of council members to have Delta Development provide a quarterly update to council so that you're aware of what they're working on, what they've applied for, what's in the works. Melanie, our grants administrator, sent an email earlier this week. She will plan to do a quarterly grants update to council and include Delta in that update / conversation so that you have a comprehensive understanding of the grant program, what's being pursued, and we can have the conversation, about what your interests are as far as grant pursuits as well.
Thank you, Ms. Fessler. I can turn it over to Teresa if you want to walk us through what's in front of us here as well.
Sure. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to participate via Zoom. I wanted to go over the pending applications that we have, and things have been a little slower this year as far as the agencies making awards, usually DCNR. Those funds are awarded any time between September and December. We're still waiting for DCNR to make awards. The first opportunity is for the improvements to Young's Wood Park. And that was a request that was submitted to DCNR for about $403,000. And then Greenways Trails and Recreation Program, GTRP, for another $250,000. And then we're showing a city match there of $153,290. And those are improvements to the park that include playground equipment, some pickleball courts, and ADA trails and parking improvements as well. So both of those awards should be made before the end of the year. Like I said, we're anticipating that DCNRs will be made shortly. We had heard that the list was at the governor's office waiting for review and then release. The second application was for ARLE, or the Automated Red Light Enforcement Transportation Enhancement Program. Those were submitted. The request was $266,419, and that's for improvements, crosswalk improvements at West 3rd, Susquehanna, and College, so in front of Penn College. We anticipate those awards to be made in January. They're typically made in January of each year, and there is no match required for that program. The third is a CFA multimodal transportation fund request in the amount of $2.7 million. CFA, the fiscal code, allows for the waiver for a match requirement. So we did request that as part of the application. These are for transportation enhancements at West 3rd Street, Hepburn to Center, and then Elmira Street from West 3rd to 4th Street. The next one is a federal program. It's Safe Streets for All. And we've requested funding for an action plan. In order to apply for funds for implementation, you have to have an action plan that meets the requirements of the Safe Streets for All. We had secured implementation funds for State College this year, and in our conversations with the Safe Streets for All team, they had encouraged State College to apply for action plan funds, but they had already had the action plan in place. But the comment from the Safe Streets for All team was they've got, they're undersubscribed for planning. And they're looking for communities to submit applications to prepare action plans for traffic safety, transportation safety. for bike and ped. So we had approached the city and encouraged them to apply. This award will be made before the end of November. After you have your action plan, that it positions you for seeking funding through this program, but also through some of PennDOT programs as well. The final is traffic signal improvements at High Street and Campbell. This is a PennDOT request. This is one that we had submitted for Green Light Go, but we weren't successful. Now that the Green Light Go program project is proceeding, we've submitted this for PennDOT multimodal. The application was just submitted on November 5th. So this award will probably be next August or September. So those are the applications that are currently been submitted. We have a few that we'll be working on in November and December, one for the firefighters. And then continue to work with Valerie and Melanie to determine any other applications, any other funding to submit on the state level. We're also assisting with grant implementation and compliance. For Bowman Field, the Office of the Budget finally did approve the scoreboard to be used as match. We're now working with the Office of the Budget to fine tune what those costs are, because we were short in maximizing the entire 600,000. So we've been working with them and allowing the installation for the scoreboard to be used as RACB costs, because we have sufficient match costs. Destination 2014, that's a Trade and Transit 2 project. There were we had submitted the final payment request for this project, and 3 of the payment requests did not have the architect's or construction manager's signature. So we've been working with the Office of the Budget to rectify that, because Reynolds is no longer, they're now Site Logic Q. And Kimball has also been merged with another company. So we've been working with them and providing the documentation needed to satisfy that, so that those funds can be released. PCCD, that was the large $1.5 million grant that was secured for the police department. We've been submitting the fiscal reports, which are the reimbursement for the costs incurred by the department, and working in submitting an extension. This was going to expire at the end of this year. We've requested a 1-year extension on this grant program. We've also been assisting with preparing documents needed for compliance for HUD and CDBG, as well as some documentation for the housing rehab program that's currently in place for the city. And then assisting with the previous Green Light Go and Arlie projects that are under construction, and drawing down the funds for reimbursement for those as well. So if you have any questions on what's pending, what we're doing as far as compliance, I'll be happy to answer.
Ms. Mealy,
The city match for
can you
Young's
talk
Woods-
into the mic? I don't know that she's going to be able to hear you.
Sorry about that, Teresa. The city match for Young's Woods is community development funding.
No, actually, the city match for Young's Woods is anticipated from a local foundation that we've been working with.
It's not American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Is
maybe
not
that's
American
trying to
Rescue
stop.
Plan Act
Good.
funding, no.
Even better to get it elsewhere, but just trying to make sure that it wasn't ARPA.
Yeah, we're working with a local foundation that focuses largely on support of healthcare initiatives. And one of the goals for Young's Woods was to provide an all-inclusive playground space, as well as a practice space for the Lycoming County Special Olympics. So it seems to be a really great fit with their priorities.
Well, that's fantastic. And then the documents for HUD and community development, that are those, so somehow don't fall under the rubric of what CEDACOG's doing? Or,
CEDACOG is managing our CDBG program and does not manage our home program. And when we went through our recent monitoring, there were some compliance documents that needed to be updated. And Teresa has that expertise from some previous roles in other cities that she's worked with. So we leaned on her to help us work through some of those lead-based paint documents and some of the things where the HUD guidance is several hundred pages long. It was nice to have her expertise to help us diffuse some of that.
awesome. Okay, great. I think that's it for my questions. Adam, thanks.
Any other questions for Teresa from other members? Teresa, quick question. Are you having any conversations with the administration related to site development in the city? I know there's been a lot of money put into the state PA sites program. I don't know how that works, but is there any dialogue happening related to that aspect of state level funding?
Finding a location for PA sites. And with PA sites, they're looking for job creation. In like the manufacturing and some of those family sustaining wages kinds of projects. We anticipate, and we have had conversations with the city regarding projects. This is a relatively new program, as you know. It was appropriated, the funds were appropriated for the first time this year. There's also a pilot program for housing that we've been talking about. The pilot program for housing, there's only 10 million appropriated across the state this year. So it's a pilot study, and the state is currently looking for applications to determine the need so that they know what to appropriate for next year. But we have had preliminary conversations. I don't know that we've got a project this year that's ready to go for an application.
And then kind of a follow-up question, similar but a little bit different topic. Has there been any dialogue with you and the city related to facilities improvements? Part of what we're going through right now is a cost planning project with City Hall, future potential home for the police, whatever that may be. Is that on your radar?
It is. It is. We've talked about police improvements. We're waiting for that study so that we can, as you know, to submit an application, you have to quantify the need. But we have talked about RACB. I don't know when your study is going to be done. RACB's not open yet, so we have time. They just awarded funds from the last application round. So as that starts to open and you have information relative to how we can quantify an ask, yes, we have had those conversations, and I think that's the next good step for RACB.
Good. Very good. Ms. Mealy?
So this came before finance, which I'm assuming is our next step here. But the one thing that I mentioned in finance, and that I'll mention again, Teresa, just for the sake of repeating myself on this one, is the city does have a map of designated bike lanes that was created as part of a Safe Streets ordinance that we put together, I think about 10 years ago, maybe even more now. And so I know that we talked about the Transportation Safety Action Plan and the fact that there were also funds available for kind of pilot bike lane programs. And I do think that that would be a very small potatoes item that it would be great to get in as soon as we could. I don't know, when did you say applications for that pilot program?
That will be early spring of 2025.
Okay. And when would they be awarded?
Next year.
Okay.
So I think last year the pilot studies were the same time as the implementation. Those applications were due in May, and then we received the award for State College right before Labor Day, so September. So it's a pretty quick turnaround.
Okay.
And they are looking for pilot pilot programs. So I think that would be a good chance to submit something, get some money, and then determine if that would work in other areas in the city.
Got it. Could you possibly send me the documentation submitted for State College?
Sure.
You had some idea of what our goal set was there?
Yeah. And with
That-
State
that was
College,
successful, right?
yeah, State College was an implementation. It was for Calder Way, if you're familiar with Calder Way, and we secured 15.8 million for that project.
For Calder Way?
Yes. It has a lot of infrastructure. The total cost for the entire length of Calder is 42 million. So
Wow.
we've been chipping away at that, and this does a pretty large section, but they have water, sewer, and stormwater that needs to be replaced as well.
It was basically a complete overhaul, not
It
like,
is.
and is that becoming a bike only?
No,
lane?
it
No?
will still allow vehicular traffic because of all the, the delivery trucks. Most of the stores have delivery from Calder. They're going to reduce the speed to 10 miles per hour to try to discourage vehicles from using it, but it will be have demarcation for bike and ped.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I would be interested to see that or any other kind of successful applications as State College has gone through this process, because they're obviously in many ways similar to us, in many ways dissimilar, but I think in this area, our needs are more similar than they are disparate. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Teresa or anything additional from Mr. Biter?
The question that I have is in regard to Destination 2014. So you brought up a very good point. Obviously, there's companies that aren't around any longer, and we need to obtain signatures from architects and things like that to get this final payment request through. So I'm hesitant to ask because I don't know what the answer is going to be, but what if we cannot obtain these documents that we need?
Actually, what the Office of the Budget agreed to accept is a letter from the city, and I've prepared that and have it. Actually just found this out this afternoon. A letter from the city stating the companies that were, Kimball and Reynolds, and the fact that they have been merged or purchased by another company and that they're no longer in business. So we're to the final point of getting the documentation or this letter needed to satisfy OB for the signatures that weren't part of those final pay apps. Now, the final pay apps were just for retainer. I think if this would have been all of the pay apps had not been executed, that would have been a bigger problem. But OB has worked out a solution with their attorneys in order to have this documentation satisfy that requirement for those pay apps. Does that make sense?
It does. My bigger concern was that we were missing much more documentation and we were going to potentially owe a large sum of money because of things that were missed a decade ago. So,
Yeah.
It's a reimbursement-based program.
right.
So maybe on the hook for the loans. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? Anything else from finance, Ms. Mealy?
Well, at this point, we're only looking at about 4 months of the
Yeah.
year that we're, So I think that it sounded as though both Delta and the city are looking forward to an opportunity to do an RFP process. Delta, as Bonnie observed, has worked for either the city or RBT, and usually both, for about the last 30 to 40 years. So, but that said, I think, an RFP process allows us to open it up, get some new ideas in the mix, and then hopefully continue with a positive relationship with our, either with our existing consultants. So that'll be exciting to see in January. Will that be who is putting together those RFPs and issuing them?
I would say that the mayor and I will work
Okay.
together with
it.
Teresa.
Just wondering. Okay, thanks, Valerie.
Mhm.
Any other comments, questions? Okay. I think I can leave this. Awesome. All right, hearing and seeing none, then Mrs. Frank on item 9.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes,
Mr. Bider.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Teresa, thank you for joining. Val, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will jump up to item 6, Mrs. Frank.
An ordinance transfer ordinance number 14 in final reading.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mrs. Livermore, welcome. Anything to add from first reading?
Good evening, council. No, I don't have anything to add from the first reading.
Okay. There were a couple of questions related to a couple of the projects that just came up earlier this week. That, to be frank, we're still kind of flushing out the answers to. So I do think it would be worth tabling this until the December 5th meeting. I don't believe that's going to necessarily cause any issues on the public works end from talking to Scott Livermore before. So I think that'll give us some time to flush out some final details. Motion and a second to table.
so moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to table. Any comments, questions? Mrs. Frank, then on the motion to table, item 6, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes,
Mr. Bider.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion to table passes 7-0. Thank you very much. We will jump to item 14, or I'm sorry, 7. Well, man, I was reading ordinance number 14. Item 7, Mrs. Frank.
Ordinance transfer number 4, first reading.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mrs. Livermore.
Hi, I'm presenting this evening on behalf of the mayor. The transfer ordinance before you is to move the reallocation of funds to the correct budget year. So there was an original transfer done for this purchase in 2023. All this ordinance is doing is just moving the year to 2024. The purchases were actually purchased in 24. So in order to have our budget documents and everything correct, this ordinance will show the transfer in 24. So 23 will still show the original transfer, but it will show no expenses happening. The 23 budget year will then close out and 24 will show the second transfer. It's not an actual, another transfer. It's just showing the amendment to the budget, showing the transfer in 2024.
I guess the only follow-up question I would have for that is, what does happen to the transfer that we completed? I mean, the funds stayed in Act 13 then?
Yes, and
Okay.
then when the year completes, it just shows that no purchases were made towards those funds.
Okay.
Then in 24, it shows that purchases were made. So we need to do this transfer to show that in 24, the transfer was actually corrected.
Got it. Okay, and just out of curiosity. Yeah, I think I understand. It just seems like a curious system. If we moved the money, so the money doesn't enter the general fund in any way when we do the transfer.
No, this is all
It
through Act
enters
13.
a line
It's all
through Act
from,
13.
yeah, and it's all just, so it's not physically moving money
Right,
from
right, right.
anywhere. It's just one line item to another line item showing the exchange.
Right, and then it needs to be, okay. All right, expended, yeah, but either way, we did it in 23 and on December 7th, and we will. do
Yeah,
it
and the
again now.
purchase just happened in 24. So this is just updating our budget information to make sure that it is correct.
Got it, okay.
Any additional questions or any additional comments from Finance Committee? Okay, here you can see none, Mrs. Frank, on item 7, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes,
Mr. Bider.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Are you handling the HR
No, Chief Snyder will do
Chief,
that.
okay, cool. We'll just go in order then.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much. Item 8, Mrs. Frank.
An ordinance authorizing installment payments for city real estate taxes.
Is there a
First
motion?
reading.
Oh, sorry. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Mackey, welcome up, sir.
Thank you and good evening. So this is something that was talked about earlier in the year about putting the city payments to be available for the taxpayers in installments. This would be very similar to how the schools are also set up right now, where they can do 2 months, 2 months, 2 months. And then from there, we can have them collected. I don't expect a lot of people to take this, but I do expect some that are going into penalty to take it. What this will wind up doing for us at most of the time is just allowing people to pay at the face value rather than go into penalty. We shouldn't see too much of revenue differences.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Finance Committee. I believe this was discussed in finance.
Yes, this was discussed in finance. I think mainly we were happy to see Mr. Mackey with no real cost to the city expanding our ability to offer our taxpayers options when it comes to paying real estate taxes. I think this is kind of a meaningful way to make tax payments a lot more reachable for a lot of people. And that is in turn a good thing. I don't recollect any comments that were of any other nature.
Mr. Biter.
There was a comment that you had made, Mr. Mackey, that I thought was beneficial for the other members of council to hear, just based upon the amount of tax revenue collected at the discount versus at the face rate, and then also in delinquency as well. If you could explain that a little bit as to how it's not going to impact your general operating fund, essentially.
Correct. So most of our payments come from mortgage companies or from people trying to make the discount amount. No one wants to pay more in taxes, and I don't blame them. But we should see about still 90% of our stuff coming in at the discount amount, and then the rest of it will trickle in throughout the rest of the year. Again, this is mainly just to allow for those, few percents that get to the end of the year to give them another option so they're not forced to pay a penalty amount. So it should not affect us, and depending upon how it goes, it might actually get some money in earlier.
And this is not changing the date of when the taxes are due or anything like that. It's just simply making us being aware that there are folks out there that need to have this ability to make that in payments, installments.
Correct, yes.
Very cool. Any other, Mrs. Katz?
Kevin, is there a program that you're going to utilize to keep track of this?
Yeah, so we have a current tax program right now that utilizes for the school taxes. We use it for all of our real estate programs. And the system is just going to be set up the same way the schools are set up, and we shouldn't have to make any alterations. It's just notifying our third party that, hey, we're going to be doing this.
Okay, and it acknowledges when these payments are due, that you can, keep track of this then.
Oh, yeah, we already do that. We should actually be sending out notifications for the remainder of the people that haven't paid property taxes this month, so.
And I see there's a penalty of 10%.
Yeah, so that's mandated by the state. We don't get a choice in that.
Which, well, there's more work involved also, to a certain extent, even though it's a program, you still have to keep on top of it.
Yeah, it's just, it allows people to break it up too, which is my hope, is that instead of having to pay, 10% penalty at the end of the year, if they don't make a payment, instead of getting a 10% on the whole thing, they only get 10% on 60 or 30% of it, which is, more money in their pocket, hopefully back into the local economy.
Terrific. No, this will be a help for some people, especially right now when.
Yeah,
a lot of
we
people
have
are-
a lot of older folks that come in at the end of the year that I'm hoping this will help out.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any additional comments or questions? Hearing seen none, then Mrs. Frank on item 8, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes,
Mr. Biter,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Kevin. We will jump to item 10, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution Appointment Director of Human Resources.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Chief Snyder, welcome, sir. Thank you for covering this one.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Council President, Council Vice President, and council members. I bring before you a resolution for the appointment of Director of Human Resources, who is Miss Donna Fuller, who I have here for you. Allow her to provide a little synopsis with her. I know you've been given her resume to see, and then I'll open up the floor for any questions that you have for her. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see you all tonight. My name is Donna Fuller, and I've applied and am looking forward to being the Director of Human Resource for the city of Williamsport. I moved here in the early 90s with my husband when he got out of the Marine Corps. We live in Nesbit. So it's only about a 7-minute drive for me, which is very beneficial. I have 3 children and 9 grandchildren. I'm looking for a permanent employer in the county because I have 3 children and 9 grandchildren. So I'm looking forward to working for the city. I think I can help a lot. I care about people, but I care about doing the right things for the right reasons, creating the greatest amount of good with the least amount of harm. Because for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So it's best if we keep things above board and we're open and honest with each other. Can I answer any questions for you all?
Mrs. Katz.
What kind of experience do you have with working with the unions? 'Cause that's coming around.
Well, my husband is 3rd generation wire rope. I was the human resource manager at Wire Rope for 9 years. My last union negotiation took 3 days. I don't do unions just during negotiations. This is a process that is a relationship that you build throughout the year. And I build that with respect. So I hope I answered your
Yes, you
question.
did.
Okay,
Yes, you did. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Ms. Mealy, thank you very much for the introduction. Ms. Mealy, any kind of dialogue in finance?
In finance, I think, we made many of the same observations that you all will make right now, which is to say that Ms. Fuller has, an excellent work history in terms of, longevity in employ, which is obviously, would be a real asset for us. And obviously has grown into the role for which she is now applying in a way that is visible over the course of her work history. Which I think is also really nice to see. Obviously, her, I didn't understand her husband was a union member, but her experience with union.
3rd generation, yes.
Will come in handy. And, since the city has several, and someone who knows how to work well with our union members will be a huge asset in the office. And aside from that, I think Ms. Katz had asked if there was anything that we might be able to help out with, and with Ms. Fuller's sort of beginning in the role. And I will turn that one back to you just so that you can address it again.
Okay, wonderful. So I did come in and I saw Cynthia's office. I will need some more file cabinets. We have files in boxes that should be under lock and key. The office is, I've been told, is actually in a large closet, which in HR, I like to have one-on-one conversations with people. So I will need some area to have that, especially with the union. Because you want to have an open door policy with your employees. I was also reminded that my predecessor, Cynthia, has been asking for an assistant. So she wanted me to remind you of that. I myself don't know if I need one, but I'll figure it out as I go. I am not looking for a current assistant by any means.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
we were aware of that.
Yeah, I was not aware of that.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe she was pulling my leg. She's a very nice lady.
Yeah, she is.
Mrs. Katz.
We do have to get you out of the closet.
I'd appreciate, I do like the windows.
Okay.
Very
was gonna
much.
say,
I like the windows. Yeah.
But it
um,
is a small place. And like you said, you've got to have a comfortable working condition at this point. And all of your information has to be right there and under lock and key. So
Yes.
hopefully the mayor will figure something out for you. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's nice when you can sit down at a table, a round table, and have a conversation with somebody when they're not at the best position that they could be
Yeah.
in. It helps.
You're getting the problems.
Yes. Yes, but that's okay.
That's good.
Does anyone else have any questions for me?
Other questions for Ms. Fuller?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Mr. Allison.
Let's
You are Mr. Allison,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
No, we
Um,
just switched all the nameplates. We like to do that for new hires.
We should have done that today, actually.
Yeah.
That would have been entertaining.
Yes, that would have been.
That's confused everybody, right? All right.
Mr. Pelisi,
I never get to be a mister. Anyway. Sorry.
Mr. Pelisi, the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, I thought Liz was just continuing with the gag. You said my name and I heard her talking. No, thank you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Hopefully, we don't have to talk very frequently. But looking forward to your service here with the city. Just wanted to let you know that we do and have had pretty competitive interdepartmental softball tournaments that traditionally the HR oversees.
I've heard that. I used to be in charge of the Springs Window Fashions softball tournament. So,
Good to know.
and my husband was the softball coach in South Side for junior high.
Gotcha.
And my children have won states and all that. So we are very competitive, a lot of us.
Chief Unks may try to recruit you. Just
Oh, no, I'm just the pack mule and the planner for softball events.
welcome.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Fuller? I would just echo a lot of those sentiments. Welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you.
I look forward to working for all of you. And that's from down deep. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mrs. Frank on the motion for item 10.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Bider.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to item 11. Mrs. Frank,
Resolution PennDOT Maintenance Signal Agreement.
is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Scott, welcome to the podium, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Council President Yoder, members of council. I have a resolution to present for your consideration. This resolution is for a traffic signal maintenance agreement between the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation and the city of Williamsport. Local municipalities are responsible for the installation, revision, maintenance, operation, and removal of traffic signals. The municipality is required to enter into an agreement with PennDOT to properly maintain and time traffic signals. The city owns and maintains our traffic signals and PennDOT regulates them. This agreement is required to synchronize, time, operate, maintain traffic signals, excuse me, pursuant to Pennsylvania Consolidated Statute 75. This has been reviewed by our solicitor, Austin White. And there's no cost for this. This was brought up because we recently met with District 3 out at the 3rd and Basin Street, where we looked at possibly revising the traffic signal out there. And in order to revise the traffic signal timing, you have to have a revised traffic signal permit. And in order to do that, you have to also have the traffic signal maintenance agreement. We don't have that. So that's where this all came from.
This was viewed in Public Works, Mrs. Katz.
Yeah, the irony of this is that we never did have a written agreement with PennDOT after all these years. So now we have it in writing and nothing's going to change really. work as usual, so it's just the maintenance agreement. Which was kind of surprising that this just came up after all these years. And Bill Scott, he told you what this is about.
Yeah. Any questions for Mr. Scott? Ms. Mealy?
Actually, I'm just hoping to understand the whole traffic signal timing thing a little better. So are you telling me that PennDOT approves the timing on all of our traffic
Yes.
We have really terrible timing on our traffic signals.
We've
Yeah.
gotten some complaints lately. That's where this came from.
Okay.
Scott and I went out, we met with District 3 at Third and Mulberry Street.
Mhm.
And we looked at that and we did revise it. We're not allowed to change the timing. The PennDOT engineer has to do it.
Oh, so wait, but so the PennDOT engineer can go in and change, and we are not even allowed to touch it?
We
Okay.
cannot change the timing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I understand that I had understood for a long time that there were rules that governed the way in which you could time your traffic signals, correct? But I didn't know that we literally had to make application to PennDOT to change. And this is a matter of like 30 seconds this way, 20 seconds the other way kind of stuff? If
Exactly.
we want to change it to
We
20.
literally stood there and observed traffic, at the Third and Basin, because that's where we've gotten complaints. It was going red coming from the east for no reason. There was no traffic there.
Mhm.
So that gained some time,
Yeah,
the other three sides,
right.
we're hoping.
Okay.
We'll see if we get any more complaints, but
Okay. Interesting. And we are not, the timing on our traffic signals has to be fixed at the signal on each of
It
them,
is.
correct? Like
Yeah,
we don't have any sort of like larger system.
it's
that
not
controls that.
remote. There's actually
Okay.
boxes there, the computer, it's all in there and
Got it.
Yeah.
So the project of updating the way in which we time our traffic signals citywide would be a pretty massive undertaking. Especially now that it also has to include PennDOT. Yes, okay. Sorry. Every time I don't drive that much, but every time I drive, especially down Third Street, I'm just like, what the? So, I've always wondered, thank you for, thank you for, for clarifying that for me, if not necessarily making the situation any better. But now at least we can request a change to the timing and they can do it because we have, okay, all right, thanks, Bill.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, sure.
I used to call John Markley all the time because I used to get so many complaints about handicapped people trying to cross the street
Mhm.
and the light would change.
Yeah.
PennDOT literally would come and say, no, it's right, and they wouldn't change the time. And
Yeah.
it was very frustrating. It really
Yeah.
was.
And I mean,
It doesn't make
this,
sense.
yeah, well, actually, my other question, is weird, but I have noticed bizarrely, I mean, do some of our signals just have like errors built into them at this point, Scott? Is that like
have what?
this is a very strange thing, but I have noticed I often drive home about 3 o'clock in the morning and the light directly outside my restaurant, where next to nobody is ever anytime, is usually still cycling red green at that time, whereas Little League Boulevard is blinking red and yellow. I mean, like I said, no big thing. I just don't even, does PennDOT also dictate that? When a light can cycle to blinking from, or is that something we dictate?
As far as, basically after hours, you're saying?
Yeah,
Going
yeah.
through a blinking cycle?
Yeah.
Not sure on the regulation on that.
That's just curiosity, but it seems as though that's also something that's a little unusual in the city right now. But anyway, maybe someday in the distant future, we can all make a list of all the things that we'd like there. Thanks, Bill, for bearing with me there.
Mr. Bider?
I just wanted to say if we're putting in requests right now for timing on lights, Fourth and Market going north, that turning lane there is obviously a couple times a day that gets pretty hectic. As folks try and make the left-hand turn onto
Yeah.
Fourth Street, that can get pretty backed up, depending upon whether it's 3:30 in the afternoon, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and so on, whether it's mornings as well as folks are trying to get to work. But again, understanding the process now a little bit more adds to why this
Mhm.
takes a little bit more.
We can certainly look at that one. Yeah.
Mr. Pelisi?
Thank you. Mr. Scott, is there any any way at all that we can take control back over the timing of our own lights? Does every light literally have to go through the state and we waste, who knows how much taxpayer money we waste just waiting and checking timing for one intersection, let alone all of them?
How about
Is
if
it-
we were a home rule municipality? I'm serious.
Are we, is there any way for us to get PennDOT out of the loop and us take control over our own city's lights?
I mean, because we're talking about all lights, not just PennDOT routes, right? It's every traffic light. in
Not just the
city,
state
regardless
routes, but
of
like
whether it's
every
a state
city
route.
in the,
Okay.
or every street in the city, right?
I keep trying to think of loopholes here, sorry.
Yeah, it's every traffic signal in the city, right? Regardless if it's a state route or not.
Yeah,
Correct.
we own the traffic signals and
Yeah.
maintain them.
But,
Yeah.
but to Liz and Vince's point, so if there's a traffic signal on a city road that PennDOT has no jurisdiction over, do they still control the timing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Their engineer had to come out in
Yeah.
Basin and Third. We are not allowed to, our electrician or me,
Yeah.
alter that timing. No.
So how much trouble would
Otherwise
we
it'd
get
be
in if we
chaos.
did it anyway?
Mhm. Yeah.
I gotta
Interesting.
ask.
Yeah. Mr.
I'll add a little bit to this. So
Yeah.
the idea of, PennDOT taking handle of the timing is a lot of the timing they put in has been studied, and there's a reason,
Yeah.
we can steal 2 seconds from this, but we got to steal from somewhere. So we're gonna hold people up here because this arrow needs to be on a little longer, but we're gonna back it up somewhere else. So the idea is they manage it through their engineering just because it's studied that they have
Yeah.
what they do.
Over. our
It's
Yeah.
complex,
Yeah.
but
There's traffic counts, timing, it is very complex.
Yeah.
but the answer, to go back to your question, could the city take it over? I mean, that's something Bill and I could talk to them about. I don't know how that works. I don't know what other municipalities do. But anytime there's an issue, they come in with their engineer and then we sit there and we look at it and they open the box up and plug everything in to verify what's going on.
Mm.
So.
Bill,
Thank
can
you.
I? Go ahead, sorry.
Nope, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it.
Can I ask you a technical question that you may not know the answer to it. It's not really imperative to this necessarily, but I'm just kind of curious. If we wanted to integrate or centralize like monitoring, even like data collection from these traffic lights, I mean, like there's literally a computer for each individual one, or they're controlled by a computer nonetheless, right? So if we wanted to do that, I mean, could we, if they're governed by PennDOT? I mean, do you know the answer to that? If I wanted to set up a computer, never mind. We won't get into it here. I can offline it with you. It's,
I don't
Well,
think they know
you're
the
thinking
answer.
counting the vehicles or
yeah,
Video?
just to pull the data out of the, I mean, it's a PLC in there likely, right? I mean, I'm just talking about like integrating into it and pulling the data out.
Right, I
Would
don't
we
know.
be allowed to do that?
Well, Nat, I don't know. A lot of our intersections, a lot of people think we have cameras on them. They're not cameras, they're infrared motion detection.
Yep, exactly.
So
You're absolutely right.
I don't know if, I don't know. That's a question we'll have to get with PennDOT to see if we can pull that off of that, but,
So we should be able to. Based on this, yeah, we should be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the contract that we co-own the data in the traffic signal, so we should be able to. I mean,
Right. That was also a question, Councilwoman Katz, Councilman Pelisi had item number 9.
Yep.
I talked to Austin, he clarified that any personal data stays personal,
Yeah.
it's not made public.
Okay. Interesting. Thanks for that. Sorry for the rabbit hole. Any additional comments or questions on this item? Okay, Bill, thanks for letting us ask you a bunch of random questions that you may or may not know the answer to. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to grill you, but it's
All right.
a little interesting and a little odd, so.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that
Yeah.
the closest I'd ever gotten to really understanding it earlier than this was being told, and I believe this to be true because I've never heard otherwise, that we are not allowed to control the speed of traffic via traffic light timing.
Hmm.
Which is absurd to me because you always control the speed of traffic via
Yeah.
traffic light timing. It's simply a question of whether or not we're allowed to decide that traffic can only move at the speed at which we have already set the speed limits. But anyway, I didn't realize the extent to which it really was entirely out of our control. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing seen on Mrs. Frank on item 12, please.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Ryder.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passed 7-0. Sorry, that was for item 11. My apologies, just to correct the record. Item 11 passed 7-0. We'll move to item 12, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing a design change order with Larson to replace traffic signal at Fourth and Mulberry Streets.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Scott?
Good evening again, Council President Yoder, members of council. Another resolution to present for your consideration. This resolution authorizes Larson Design Group here in Williamsport to provide professional engineering services for bidding and construction administration inspection for the replacement of the traffic signal at Fourth and Mulberry Street, which is utilizing a PennDOT Green Light Go grant for the funding. This is for the replacement of that traffic signal and new curb ramps there as well. Task 1 fee is for $2,000. Task 2 construction administration inspection for $24,500, which gives a grand total lump sum not to exceed figure of $26,500. Larson was the design engineer for this. They have the expertise and the knowledge of this signal, and I wanted to keep them on board for the actual construction inspection and administration for this as well.
This was also reviewed in Public Works, Mrs. Katz.
Yes, it was. It's starting to just get to the end of everything that's been done on Mulberry Street. If this is, and I didn't ask that question, is there much more to do after the curbing and the street light? Is there much more to go with that?
So 4th Street is going to get a streetscape of that block, as well as Campbell between 3rd and 4th. That's coming probably right after the signal. This signal is going to be started this winter while we're getting shop drawings. Submittals are coming in. It'll be built spring. It has to be built by May. This project's been around for a little while. I found out when I came on board, but we got it moving. It's going to be built in the spring. The signal I'm talking about. You're probably all aware this is part of the Old City Gateway project, which has been around for a few years. That's where the streetscape on 4th Street is going to come in. That's going to happen too, probably next year, the actual construction of the streetscape.
It's gonna look great when it's all finished. I don't have anything else. Unless.
Thank you.
Vince.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Mr. Scott? Additional comments or questions from members? Okay. Hearing and seeing none, then Mrs. Frank on item 12.
Mr. Allison.
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi.
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy.
Yes.
Mr. Ryder.
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 13.
Resolution authorizing professional services agreement between the Williamsport Bureau of Police and Center for Community Resources for Co-Responder Program.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Assistant Chief Bolt, welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone. President Yoder, Vice President Bider, members of council. Before you have a resolution authorizing this professional agreement between the Williamsport Bureau of Police and the Center for Community Resources. What this is an agreement that we've been working on for the better part of the year to get our mental health co-responder program up and running. CCR has graciously supplied us with a professional trained mental health professional who's going to work alongside officers on scene, respond to and assist persons in mental health crisis. Okay, provide more access to behavioral health services and make sure that there are options available to divert persons to the appropriate services that they need. And they're also going to be doing and conducting follow-ups with some of the persons that they have encountered. And officers can also do referrals if they encounter that person while the mental health co-responder is not there, so that they can actually help them when not on scene. This program is going to be funded through our PCCD grant that we've been utilizing. This is one of the things that we envisioned when we created this grant and implemented. And it will be funded through December of 2025 through the grant. This has been reviewed by Solicitor Austin White, and this was discussed in Public Works. Be more than happy to entertain any questions if necessary.
Thank you. Mrs. Katz, Public Works.
This is an excellent program that I think is so needed, especially the climate of our country at this point. And you can understand if our police officers are in a confrontation, and I don't know, that's the wrong word to use, but somebody who is mentally challenged and trying to control them and not get hurt or hurt them. This is such an interesting program to do that. Plus, our officers will be also trained in this also.
Yes.
As far as them being able to maybe calm the situation down. So, and what it is here, I have written down, the cost of this is not to exceed 70,000.
That is correct.
Okay. So, you know, we all thought this was just a good program all the way around.
Thank you, Mrs. Katz. Any comments from members? Mr. Biter?
The only question that I have is in regard to a line item here with the contractor's obligation. We have to provide them with ballistic vests.
Yeah.
Is that something that we have to go out and purchase, or do we have those that are available?
It's tailor-made and it's custom tailor-made, and it's already been factored in, and it's actually, I believe, in and provided to her.
Excellent.
Ms. Mealy?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that this is not a 24-hour sort of position.
ma'am.
This is an individual. Have we settled on a number of hours that we think, or days, hours that this person will generally be working that we think are?
Yeah, right now it's a trial and error kind of basis, so we're trying to do a 12 to 8 right now.
Okay.
So it benefits her, it's conducive to her scheduling, personal scheduling. So we're trying to capture the day shift and then the night shift when the most activity is. So we thought if we did it at noon till 8 o'clock, we can get across between both. So we're gonna do that for a little bit and see how that works for us, but it's gonna be an available opportunity with referrals and whatnot. And then as we go along, if it's something that we're gonna change or something will work better. So it's gonna be a program. It's a growing program. We're gonna try to see what's the best implementation for Williamsport City and Williamsport Police. So
As we go along.
Okay. And so I guess what I'm understanding from that is this is the first person, are we expecting, anticipating, amplifying the number of people that we're working with, having, maybe not having someone on every shift or anything like that, but expanding the hours so that we have.
we'd like
more
to expand the
services
hours, but we also want
Okay.
to grow this into making all of our officers a mental health expert.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea is to get us on board. Talked a little bit in the finance meeting that, this is unfortunately where policing is going. But policing, the law enforcement institution we essentially are gonna be a bunch of mental health experts. So this is gonna help us along with that. We're providing more training. We talked a little bit about the autism training that we're providing to the officers, based on encounters that we may have with an autistic person. So the idea is just to train us as much as we can, get us to that point where we're mediating those encounters. It's also a diversion tactic. So not everybody needs to go to jail. So this program is going to allow us to get that person to help and get them in the direction that they need to get the help to fix them. And so they're not just sitting in jail, not getting the help that they need.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that, and what is the scope in years and B, the scope in financials of the grant that we received?
No, right now, like we're using a grant, we have until December 2025, but we've already in talks with members and representatives from council, or excuse me, from the county. We could talk a little bit more in depth about that, but there's grant opportunities. There's other funding sources that we're looking into. This right now is a pilot program. We obviously want to extend it, keep it going. So we're reaching out, identifying those persons that can help us procure funding to keep this program going.
Got it. So we have funding through 2025 and funding for one individual through 2025.
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And like I said, we're gonna continue, this will give us some time to explore.
Right.
Additional funding.
Yeah, no, I just wasn't sure if we were planning to amplify it over the course of 25 or if this was the program through the end of 25 and then we hope to grow it moving from there. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, here you can see none. Mrs. Frank on item 13, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item 14.
Resolution authorizing contract between the Williamsport Bureau of Police and XL K-9 Services.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Assistant Chief Bolt.
Thank you. So what you have before you is a contract with XL K-9 Services. This is a company out of Ohio. They're supplying the Williamsport Bureau of Police with Golden Lab Mix K-9 that's going to be trained in explosive detection and tracking. This is different than the current 2 K-9s that we have, which are not ballistics animals. They are narcotics detection and apprehension. Okay, so it'll have different abilities. It'd be a little friendlier with the dog, a little different mission. Okay. Then that's as a bonus that we can utilize it for. The money to pay for this, our K-9 programs are usually through donation. I do believe a portion of this was also grant funded that we were able to get. So we're very thankful for that. And it's no cost to the city then. However, I believe the total cost for this contract, and that's both supplying the dog plus training of the K-9 as well as the handlers, is $12,800. Again, this was reviewed by Solicitor Austin White and was discussed in Public Works as well. Oh, and one other thing before I forget, the copy you have before you may be changed slightly on paragraph 11. I believe there is a change in that paragraph where they remove the last 2 sentences. I think fundamentally it does not change the contract. It was just something that Austin and their solicitor were able to take care of here last minute. And I can read the entirety of the last sentence if necessary, if it's different than what you have. Was this supplied to them? Do you know?
So it's just the last 2 sentences of the paragraph 11 were deleted.
Yeah, you emailed it.
Yeah, I did. I
Okay,
did send
good.
it to Council President Yoder.
Oh, you didn't send it to everybody?
No, I just sent it to you.
You're the gatekeeper, Adam.
Yeah, clearly. Public Works, Mrs. Katz.
Yes, after the meeting, it dawned on me, you get the sweetest looking dog face and it's a bomb dog. I mean, it's like, God love them. The other interesting thing is that we're utilizing our canines to the best. I really do think that's happening. And having this dog, I didn't ask, is this dog just going to be used for that, or are there other areas of his expertise? Do you know, or is it strictly?
So these dogs, they're dual purpose in that they will not only be bomb detection, but also tracking for persons, things of that nature.
Okay. And the $12,800, from what you said at the meeting, it also includes the vehicle being, there's special equipment that has to be put in for the canines.
Not for the 12,800, but
okay.
we have that already.
You already
factored
have
in.
that, so
We
that-
already have that
okay.
taken care of. We
That's
have
what
the
I didn't
vehicle, we have the upfit, we have everything that's necessary
Okay,
so that we're able to function correctly and take care of both the handler and the animal. Yes.
and this isn't going to come about until next year? How long is it the training? I don't remember. Do you know?
I can't remember if he's already currently at the training. So I believe it will hopefully be before the end of the year.
6 to 10.
Okay,
Yeah,
oh, good.
yeah,
So about 10 weeks.
yeah. 6 to 10
Fantastic.
weeks, so.
And the canines can work all shifts, right? Are they, how's that working out with them?
Well, they work, whatever shift the handler's working, and it's typically an 8-hour shift.
Okay. I'm really happy that we're still going with the donations. Because that was my main objective. I didn't want it to be a line item. And I think everybody should be aware that we are looking for donations constantly for the canines. So, but I thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. I don't know if anybody has any questions for them.
Ms. Mealy?
So what, I noticed, and this was surprising to me, that it's a 2-year guarantee on the dog's performance and workability.
I believe if that's in there, then yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that's it.
What is the guarantee on our drug canines? Do
I
you
don't
know?
have that
I
information
would
for you right now.
presume.
I know
Goldens
that
are not
they've
that
been
long
working
lived.
for a while, so,
Yeah, that
Yeah.
seems like they've both been on for a while.
yeah.
Is there a reason why golden retrievers are better at sniffing out bombs than?
I couldn't answer that. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll look into it. I was just kind of
Yes.
curious when you said a nicer dog. I was like, yeah, that is true. They're very nice tempered dogs, but I don't know why you'd have to have a jerk dog to do drugs versus bombs.
One of the things,
Yeah.
it's the type of dog that was provided. It's
Okay.
a request that we made, so it could have been a shepherd.
Oh, it could have been anything. This is just,
happened to be a
okay.
lab.
All right. Okay, just kind of curious about it. But anyway, so yeah, so we're anticipating that the dog would need to be replaced in about a 2-year window. Yeah. Like, sounds like, or is that, or
No, I
the
don't
dog
believe
can
that that's what
continue
that
to
means.
work
I think
until.
it's more
Okay.
like a guarantee that if
Okay,
there's any
got it.
issues
It's like
within
a
those 2
warranty of
years.
sorts.
Yeah,
Okay, so
correct.
the dog
Yeah.
will hopefully
I think,
be in good health for longer than that.
absolutely.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this item? Mr. Mackey?
Nobody's gonna ask what the dog's name is.
And who its handler is, I suppose.
Do you know the dog's name?
So there was a name that the dog has. There might be a slight change that has not been told. That's gonna be up to the handler.
We'll do that.
So once the handler comes back, we are gonna do a release.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do a release, let everybody see who the handler is and the dog and do that. So I don't want to say the name now if it does change and then, so.
Understood.
Okay.
Fair. Any other
It's not gonna be full.
questions? All right. Thank you both for handling the questions. Mrs. Frank, on item 14, please.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey.
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 15.
Resolution real estate reduction.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Mackey, welcome back.
Yeah, so these are 3 properties that the county has changed the assessment for. During the repository sale, I learned recently too that whatever they buy the purchase price at is what the assessment becomes. So
Oh, makes the assessment process a little easier, right?
it does, though technically there are some properties out there that I'd still question why they are what they are after several years. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping next year that'll change.
I think it takes place, what, 2028?
No, it's starting 2025 for the reassessment. And then I think it's gonna take about 2 or 3 years to
Yeah,
finish
I
up,
think it takes
so.
effect in 2028. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it takes a couple years to collect everything and yeah, so. Any questions for Mr. Mackey? Okay. Mrs. Frank on item 15.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 16.
Resolution authorizing the purchase of a disaster recovery solution.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Black, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Council President Yoder, other members of council. What you have here is a resolution to put in a disaster recovery solution that will cover all of our servers in the case of, as one salesman put it, your data center turns into a smoking crater. This would allow us to be back up and running, doing business within 2 hours.
This was reviewed in finance. Ms. Mealy.
Yes, this was reviewed in finance, and can be funded out of the current 2024.
Correct, I'm sorry. Yes,
IT.
it's been a little while since I've been up here.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Out of the
but
routine.
Yeah, that's an important point that Chris said. There were some items that he had originally built into his budget that he actually refresh my memory, 'cause I don't remember what it was.
Was a GIS system.
Yeah.
That I don't need to purchase at this point. The new E-Force that the police department put in place does have that component within it already.
So that we had already in our budget for this year, the funding for this available. I think it comes out to about $19,000 a year.
This particular one is, yeah, it's just a little bit shy of 18.9.
And yeah, basically allows us to recover quickly from ransomware, et cetera,
Ransomware, just general failure, massive virus attack, 0-day attacks.
I can't remember who testified to the likelihood that we might actually get hit with something like this during the finance meeting, but someone else who was on the call was like, oh yeah, Kevin. Right. Kevin, would you like to speak in support of this item?
Yeah, so I just mentioned during the finance meeting, my father works in school bus transportation, and one of his neighboring jurisdictions got hit with ransomware. And if you could think that somebody wanted to target school bus transportation data as the likelihood of that they would get money out of that, it kind of ruined those people's days that were working with that data. So it's nice that Chris is getting this ready for us. I know I appreciate it. So.
Anyway, yes, the money exists in the existing 24 budget, and this fills a gap in our cyber protection that allows
Yes.
us to quickly resume operations if the.
And cyber insurance companies love to see stuff like this.
Any additional comments or questions?
Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Frank on item 16.
Mr. Allison,
Yeah.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chris. We'll move to item 17, Mrs. Frank.
Resolution authorizing an agreement between Williamsport Bureau of Fire and Whitmore Buick Chevrolet.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Chief Ongst, good evening, sir.
Good evening, President Yoder, Vice President Bider, members of council. Before you is a resolution to purchase a 2024 Chevy Silverado 1500. This truck will ultimately it will replace the 2005 Ford Expedition that the fire inspector currently uses. He will then take over the 2021 Silverado 1500 that the deputy chief is currently using. This was discussed in Public Works. It will come out of the sale of engine 1, and it's not to exceed $54,100, and it was reviewed by Austin.
Thank you, Chief. Mrs. Katz.
Yes, this is straightforward. Did you go through co-stars with this?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't see it. That's what I asked, but it's what the chief said is what we're needing. And we're trying to get all of our vehicles all operational at this point.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing seeing none, Mrs. Frank on item 17.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. We'll move to item 18.
Resolution authorizing an agreement between Williamsport Bureau of Fire and Charles Murtis.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Chief?
Okay, so this one and the next one kind of go together. So this one is for the installation of a gas heater for the shed that we purchased with the Pennsylvania Municipal Fire Department capital grant. The plan is to move our current stock room, the materials that are in there, out to this shed. The shed is a 20 by 20 shed that we purchased from Trophy Sheds. This will allow us to utilize that space inside fire headquarters that we currently use as the stock room. We'll be able to utilize that as the training room. That's what our ultimate plan is. So Mr. Murtis will install the gas heater for $2,953.11. It was reviewed by Austin and discussed at Public Works.
Thank you, Chief. Mrs. Scotts, Public Works?
Yes, it's amazing how much equipment is in the fire hall to begin with. And they do need the space, and this is a perfect opportunity to have this all put in there and get organized. And I like the idea that you said you're going to be able to use that room then for training purposes.
Right.
Which it's probably been very difficult trying to maneuver all throughout everything with that.
It has, you know, currently our training room is also our kitchen, our meeting room. I mean, it's a multi-purpose room that isn't really what it should be.
Yeah, this is going to help you be more organized. And like you said, the shed is 20 by 20. So that's going to give them enough room to, store your stuff and be more organized. And that's, I think the chief said it all.
Any additional comments or questions? Mr. Allison?
Just to be clear, because I was kind of having a little trouble following the numbers below. So the 29.53 that's the equipment that covers the heater and the installation of it.
I believe that's just the installation of it.
That's just the installation.
Correct.
Okay.
So do we own the heater?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I believe what Mr. Allison is referring to is there's two separate invoices here. There's one that's from RE Mitchell Company for
RE Mike.
$1,217, and then there's an additional invoice from Mr. Murtis for $1,735. And within that, my assumption is that the $1,735 is including the gas line, which is said there, and materials for the shed, heater, and the labor. But then the other invoice, I'm assuming, is for the heater itself.
Yes, that's correct. So RE Michael is an HVAC company.
Right.
I apologize. But RE Michael, they only sell to licensed vendors or licensed contractors. So that's who it would be being purchased through. Is RE Michael.
Because it says they're shipped to, bill to, and it has Mr. Murtis's name. So
Right.
he's purchasing that on our behalf.
Correct.
Okay.
So the total cost is then
That 2009. That's the right number for that.
Yeah.
2,953. The excavating's the crazy thing.
Any additional questions? Mrs. Mealy?
Just one quick question. Does that mean that we will need to heat the shed all winter long?
Yes.
Like 24 hours?
Yeah, at a lower temperature.
Okay. I guess, is the shed insulated at all?
Yes, it's fully insulated.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
remember that from the specs. I probably should have, but, okay. All right, good. So.
Yeah.
All right,
Floor, walls, ceiling.
okay. Excellent. But we can maintain it at like 45 or 50 degrees.
Yeah, we were thinking 50 degrees. We did talk with the manufacturer of the shed.
Mhm.
He suggested rather than putting a heating and cooling unit in
Mhm.
there, have like a shop heater, which is what this is. And then utilize a dehumidifier during the summer months.
Mhm. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, hearing and seeing none, Mrs. Franklin, item 18.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item 19, Mrs. Franklin.
Resolution authorizing an agreement between the Williamsport Bureau of Fire and True Grade Excavating and Hauling.
Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Chief?
Okay, so this is, like I said, in conjunction with that heater, we ran the electric and, a gas line, or trenched the parking lot to run that out. While we had it open, there was discussion about installing the gas line. So, that was what we were looking at. Again, this is for, will come from the Pennsylvania Municipal Fire Department Capital Grant again. $4,215.36. And that's to run both the conduit for both the gas and the electric. It was reviewed by Austin and discussed in Public Works.
Mrs. Katz, Public Works?
I think you discussed this with the previous resolution. There's, this is what's needed to complete the whole process with the shed.
And that's also for the materials as well, the conduit, everything.
Any additional questions for Chief? Here you see none, Mrs. Franklin, item 19.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you all.
All that's left, Janice, for my notes, is item 22, right?
Yes.
Item 22, certificates of appropriateness from the Historic Architectural Review Board. We've got two. If I'm reading this right, we've got one for DC Land Company, 247 Campbell Street. And we've got another one for Stone Fortress Residential 2 LLC at 332 Center Street. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Descriptions are on the agenda. Documentation is in Dropbox for everybody, but are there any comments or I don't know that I can really address any comments or questions, to be frank with you, but
I'd rather you were Adam.
huh?
Said I'd rather you just be Adam.
Rather you just be Adam than Frank. Touche.
Sorry.
I guess anything that sticks out for questions for the hard board that we can send back, I suppose, is a better way to phrase that. All right. Here you see none, then Mrs. Franklin, item 22.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz,
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item 23, except for filing hard minutes from October 15th, 2024. Finance Committee meeting minutes from July 9th and September 3rd, 2024, and Controller's Report from August 2024. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions on the items we're accepting for filing? Here you see none, Mrs. Frank on item 23.
Mr. Allison,
Yes.
Mr. Mackey,
Yes.
Mr. Pelisi,
Yes.
Mrs. Katz.
Yes.
Ms. Mealy,
Yes.
Mr. Bider,
Yes.
Mr. Yoder.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item 24, announcements. Our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be on Thursday, December 5th, 7 PM here in Trade and Transit 2. Our next upcoming meetings are budget meetings. So we're getting into budget season. Our first one will be Monday, November 18th. Second meeting will be Wednesday, November 20th, both 7 PM here in Trade and Transit 2. Upcoming additional meetings and announcements. Monday, November 11th, City Hall will be closed for Veterans Day. Monday, November 18th, Wednesday, November 20th, 7 PM, budget meetings 1 and 2, as I just mentioned. Tuesday, December 3rd, 11:30 AM, Public Safety, 1 PM, Finance, 2:30 PM, Public Works. Wednesday, December 4th, if needed, 9 AM, Economic Revitalization. Next meeting, Thursday, December 5th, our next city council meeting. Any comments from members of city council tonight?
Do we know when we're gonna get the funding?
Jamie had mentioned hopefully mid next week. So she's playing a little bit of catch up with a couple of things. So hopefully we should still be on time for those meetings, but if we run into a situation where we got to push it back like we had to a couple of years ago, we can look at that.
Okay.
Mr. Biter.
Mr. Livermore, if you could just let us know when fall cleanup is going to be entering its final stages. Yeah.
How long does it go until?
Spring.
Spring.
Until
Mr. Livermore
snows.
loves that comment.
Pretty much when the snow flies, when we plow them off the roads when it's done.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll continue on as long as we can until it's all cleaned up. Right now, we're in the worst of it, worst of the worst, so.
Okay.
We usually go, I mean, last year, I think we went to almost Christmas because there was no snow, so
Okay.
we'll run as,
And indications are. There
that?
won't, I think
Fingers
indications
crossed.
are there won't be any snow this year either.
no,
Fingers crossed.
so, yep, till it's all picked up. I mean, we won't stop.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Any comments from members of the administration? Mr. Nar.
Good evening. This is merely a public safety message that we wanted to put the Bureau of Codes as well as the fire department kind of wanted to put it out.
Sure.
It is the winter season. More and more people are turning to using the portable space heaters. If you are planning on using it, please keep it on a flat, smooth surface. Keep it at least 3 feet away from anything that can be flammable or catch fire. When plugging it in, it should only be plugged in directly to the wall. Don't use an extension cord and don't use a surge charge protector. These, again, what we're also doing is the codes department, each officer has many copies of these. For every rental property that we are doing, they will be provided for each unit, not just the building itself. So again, it is that time of year. If you elect to use them, please be safe. These are very dangerous. And as the fire department is aware, you know, this is one of the major causes of fire. So we just wanted everyone to be aware of that.
Appreciate that, Ms. Mealy.
One quick question on that, Gary. Any chance you've got it in Spanish?
What's that?
The handout, do you have it in Spanish too?
Yes, we do.
Okay, awesome.
This came from FEMA.
Okay, great.
Nice. Thank you very much. Chief, please.
One other thing is, we do have a burn ban. It's a very elevated, forest fire hazard, brush fire hazard. We did have a fire over behind the transfer station, earlier this week. There were 4 places.
Yeah.
So ourselves and Old Lycoming Township enacted a burn ban until the 20th of November, at which time we'll review. It didn't look like there was much rain or precipitation that would have a big impact on that, so until further notice.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Gary. Any additional comments from members of the administration? Any comments from the public? I know there's a couple people up here from the public. Is there any comments? Okay. No news media here that I'm aware of. We'll take a motion, a second for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Thank you all. We'll see you in a few weeks.